You're listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. Hear from those currently on the force while getting an insider view from what it takes to become a law enforcement officer.
Welcome to episode number 12 of On the Road, a law enforcement journey. I'm your host, Jeremy Tormla. I apologize for the break between episodes. I know I said I wasn't going to do it again, so I'm just going to stop saying I'm not going to do things because it always ends up easier said than done. We've been really busy with practicals and written exams, especially now we're coming up on our midterm exams. So it's been busy as far as having to study material and get assignments and all that other stuff done, while also trying to be involved as a spouse and a dad on the weekends. So I don't want to just leave it up to my wife all the time while I get to come home and study and escape from that. That wouldn't be fair. So episode number 12, we're going to do a recap of weeks 8 and 9 of the police academy. Again, I want to stress that this academy is in Michigan, and there are going to be some differences across academies from across the state and obviously from across the country, but this gives you an insight of what I'm going through. We're also going to discuss responding to crimes in progress for our practical segment and managing low back pain for our fitness segment. A word on responding to crimes. Look, I'm still in the academy, so I'm not going to be saying how you should be doing things. It's just basing off of scenarios we went through using simunition training and the importance of being able to use your tools in all these different situations. So without further ado, let's get started. Let me go to my notes here. I might breeze through some of this stuff because 2 days out of the week, we pretty much go through the same classes over and over again. So I'm not going to just really go through all that material. It's kind of common sense that, first aid, we're doing first aid training. We're addressing how to evaluate a patient or a casualty and the basics of applying pressure and pressure bandages and tourniquets. I mean, it's really pretty straightforward. So there's no need to go in such great detail on what all we talked about during that training day. A lot of the fitness stuff, and this is why I really need to start making notes of after each day to help me pick out anything significant that might have happened that day to talk about on the podcast. Fitness, I really can't recall what all we did for week 8 and most of week 9. I just know the last 2 days because we got our asses kicked on them. So Monday, this is week 8, so March 7th to the 11th. On Monday, we did fitness, probably like we always do, your typical running, push-up, sit-up stuff. Then we had 3 hours of subject control. Our primary instructors weren't there for the week, so we had 2 instructors who always are at training, but they're not the lead instructors for it. And all we did, which was really nice, is we slowed things down for a change and focused just solely on takedowns, handcuffing, and escaping from the guard and mount positions. That's all we did for 3 hours. And I feel like I probably learned more out of that because we slowed things down so much. We did not go 100% on anything. It was all just practicing technique and learning, doing it over and over and over again, which I really liked. Because when you learn something 2 times and you go 100% at it, chances are you're going to forget all about it and just try to do what you can to get out of a situation. After that, we had 4 hours of first aid. Again, I'm not going to go detailed. Pretty much our first aid sessions have been hour and a half to 2 hours of PowerPoint lectures, and then most of the other time is just completely scenario after scenario after scenario. We go through the scenario and then we talk about what went good, what could have been better, and stuff like that. And you're not always being the one active in the scenario, so you get to watch other people go through it and like evaluate in your own head, what would I have done differently, or stuff like that. It's all a learning process regardless. I really like first aid, our instructor. He's a fire chief, and he's also been an EMT for a long time. He's, again, another great instructor who's passionate about what he teaches and what he does, so it's easy to learn and pay attention. Then the last 2 hours of the day, we had child abuse investigation. Again, that's something that really irks me, especially now being a father myself, is people who abuse children and people who allow that to happen, and there's no excuse for that. Tuesday, fitness for an hour. Then we did report writing. And I'm going to touch more on report writing here in a little bit because it is one of the most valuable things that we are, that we're learning. But unfortunately, I think what we only go through, was it 12 hours total, I think, of report writing, which all of us were like, how the hell can something of such importance only be 12 hours out of our entire 16-week academy? So that's one kind of complaint that we all have a general consensus on, is that we need more of it. Because, like I said on the last episode, report writing can make or break a case. It can make you look like a competent officer, or it can make you look like a knucklehead who doesn't know what they're doing. And once you lose your integrity and your competence, good luck trying to get any other cases to be charged by a prosecutor. Not going to happen. So we had that for 4 hours. We really just learned the structure and the basics of writing a report. So there was nothing really practical from that standpoint. It was just mainly teaching the do's and don'ts and how to make report writing a little bit easier on yourself. Then we did an hour of types of patrols. This was very basic, just talking about random versus direct patrols, proactive versus reactive, the pros and cons of each of those. I really don't see really any pros to being reactive. You can stop so much stuff by being a proactive police officer, being out and about in your community, showing that you're around. By doing that, people are going to be more apt to think, well, I'm not going to do this because I know police presence, there's usually one riding around here every couple hours or once a day. So more than likely, you're going to stop some stuff from happening, which is a pro. We want to be proactive with everything. Then we did 2 hours with dealing with juveniles, again, which is really interesting because it's a whole different basket in many aspects than compared to dealing with the adult population. Again, I touched on that on the last episode. And we did our last 2 hours for the day was criminal law, admissions, and confession. So learning all about the importance of Miranda rights and the major cases, of like Arizona versus Gant and those type of stuff. It's really interesting because you learn a lot of stuff like that, like what the law is supposed to be, the elements of a crime and stuff like that. And then you watch some stuff on TV, say like Cops, and you're watching what some of the officers doing, and you're like, yeah, that's illegal. You can't be doing that. And that case should probably be thrown out. So very beneficial. I really enjoy this stuff because, if you don't know what you're doing, you can't enforce it on anybody. And here's something. Watch a video of this, of a cop losing his mind over somebody giving him the finger. This police officer pulled this guy over, and took him out of the car, quote unquote, detained him, and then searched his vehicle and stuff. Highly illegal. You can't do that. I like our prosecutor. He's former military, so it's easy to understand what he's saying with the verbiage that he uses. But just so everybody else knows out there, you can't just walk down the street and demand somebody to give you ID, and you cannot charge them with obstruction if they don't provide that. They have every right to just say, fuck you, and go about their merry way. You can't just beat your chest and play RoboCop. That's not how it works. And I don't think any police officer wants to be that way. You want to be community policing and making a difference in your community in a positive way. That's obviously not a positive way. So I'll get off that box on that. Again, admissions and confessions so important, especially when building a case in regards to Miranda rights, when they should be read, and stuff like that. Wednesday, fitness. Again, don't remember what we did. Then we had wellness, low back pain, which was beneficial. Just a very short block, and that's why I'm making this the fitness segment, because there's so much more to managing low back pain and why it's so prevalent in the law enforcement community. And if people would just do simple things, they could to help mitigate some of the low back pain they might be coming across. Then we did 2 hours of report writing. We worked on one case, I believe. So the way we did our report writing, and we did this on Thursday as well. Let me see. Yep, Thursday. So our report writing, how we would do our scenarios is we would literally watch body cam footage, and then we'd have to pretend or act like we were that responding officer and then write a report on what we just saw. So it was nice because you didn't have to make up stuff or watch surveillance video on YouTube and try to just make stuff up. You could actually write a narrative of what happened based off the body cam footage that we were using. For another 4 hours of first aid, an hour of child abuse investigation. That was our last block for that. And then 1 hour of death investigation, which is also interesting. Again, I say that a lot, but I mean, when it comes to my own self, like watching TV, I like watching things like the First 48 and stuff like that, like all the detective type shows. So not to sound weird or crazy or anything, but death is kind of fascinating a little bit. It's just interesting to see how people went or why they went and the different methods and stuff like that. I mean, it's somebody's story that's not told yet, and it's interesting to kind of see how that story unravels and stuff like that. Very intriguing. Thursday, fitness, and then report writing. Report writing, I think we did 2 scenarios, so 2 different cases of watching body cam footage and then having to write a thorough report. I think one was OWI and then obstructing and resisting. That was 3 hours. Another hour of patrol area checks. Then we did 3 hours of incident command. So this was just the basics again of revisiting hazmat, dealing with mass cal events or preparing for things like hurricanes or flooding or snowstorms when you got like massive traffic accidents. And we had a scenario at the end of how we would handle that, like a tabletop scenario. So our incident commander literally brought a bunch of like toy cars and people and stuff and printouts of an area in our location, and it was based off an event that actually did happen of a major vehicle pile up in a foggy conditions and the roles of the first responding officers and how you would do that. It was crazy to see how quick things can become a shit show if you don't take control and do what you're supposed to. It was a learning experience. Everything's a learning experience. Again, you get what you put into things. If you go in with a closed mind and just roll your eyes and click your pen and tap your feet, you're not going to get anything out of it. You never know when you might have a situation arise where you go, even if it's just one thing, be like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember this thing on how to deal with a situation like that. So it's just a tool in the toolbox. And the obvious one, again, just going from a military background, is it's just blatantly disrespectful to any instructor to be a person and look disengaged or yawning and stuff like that. You got to do your best to stay awake and be upright and give them your undivided full attention, even if you're not interested in the material. Then we did another 2 hours of criminal law. This was on laws of arrest. So pretty much going off of the Miranda rights and stuff like that. These are our 2 biggest ones, and it was our last block. So we did laws of arrest for an hour, and then we did an hour of reviewing for our midterm exam that was coming up on week 9, which I'll talk about. Friday we did human trafficking. So this was a 5-day week. Week 8 was 5 training days. So we did 3 hours of human trafficking, and then we did a women's and men's seminar for 2 hours. And all that is we broke off into 2 groups. We only have 1 female and then the 8 males. So we had officers from various departments around the area come in and just talk to us. And we could ask any questions, and they would talk to things about like the interview process and how to represent yourself and how to prepare for that, or what their experience has been. And it was nice because we had not only officers from different departments, but we had of different experience. So we had one who was a K-9 handler, but retired out of the Marine Corps as a sergeant major. And then he's done a long time in the police force. And then we had somebody who's about midway through their career as a sergeant. And then we had somebody who graduated from the academy I'm at a year ago. So somebody who's brand new to it, still figuring out how things work, someone who's midway through, and then someone near the end of their career, and how they would handle situations and what their thoughts and opinions are. It was very interesting. Then we did officer involved shootings. Very interesting again, because it's real life perspectives from the instructor who's actually been in a situation in which a gun had to be fired, or not. I don't want to say had to be fired in this case. It just ended up being fired, and what the repercussions and stuff like that are. So just mainly to prepare us for what's going to happen if you have to use your gun. And it's just the nature of the beast. And I mean, obviously, it has to play out. I'll just say, going into an investigation, understanding your Garrity rights and stuff like that, or understanding Garrity, and that it's just an investigation. You're going to feel like a criminal, which, again, if you pull out your gun and you shoot somebody, they have to investigate it because you don't want anybody just walking on the streets and blowing citizens away. I mean, obviously. But it was just interesting to hear real life situations from one of our instructors who's actually been through that process before and has come out on the other side. So that really helps. Yeah, I'm going to go. I was going to save this towards the end, but I was picked for the Paul Butterfield, so Trooper Paul Butterfield scholarship, and means a lot to myself because it really does help me to be able to financially be able to make it through this academy. Anybody in Michigan probably knows, especially if you're a police officer, if you're a state trooper, you definitely know who Paul Butterfield is. But I'll just give a quick breakdown of it. Paul Butterfield was killed on a routine traffic stop. And what really helped the situation was when he pulled the vehicle over, he called out what the plates were and then how many people were on board. Had he not done that, the individual who shot him would probably still be walking to this day because they wouldn't have had no way to find out what happened and who did it. So Trooper Paul Butterfield made a traffic stop, and as he approached this vehicle, the armed male already had the gun kind of pointed towards the window. So as soon as Paul Butterfield got to the window, he was shot in the head. And he was found 3 minutes later by another vehicle passing by. And the person who reported it called, officer down with a gunshot wound to the head. And unfortunately, he didn't make it. And I know Paul Butterfield's dad retired out of the Michigan State Police. So I can't imagine how hard that was. But I am honored to have been able to be selected for that scholarship, and anything I do in my law enforcement career will have Trooper Paul Butterfield's name associated with it. So that meant a lot to me and my family because, again, I really want to go through this, and financially wise, because I'm not making an income right now, and through the sports industry, I won't get into details of that, but a lot of ups and downs. You don't have anything saved up, so it's really helps, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I'll make sure that I don't do anything to disgrace not only my name but the Butterfield name as well. Week 9, busy week. We only had 4 training days, which was nice. I think it was our first 4-day training week in a couple weeks, and it's going to be our last one for a while coming up. We got spring break coming up shortly, and then we got a few 5 and 6 day training weeks. And it is going by super fast. I want to stress to this. If you're thinking about going to the academy, you're nervous about going to a police academy, 16 weeks seems like a long time, but it flies by so damn fast. Like, I can't believe we're 9 weeks over this stuff already. And the thing that helps is you are not going through it alone. Our academy is really small. I think I feel a little bit more camaraderie with this group than I did going through my basic training in AIT, so advanced individual training in the military, just because it is such a smaller group. You know a lot more things about each other, and it's like a little family. I mean, that's how it is everywhere, I guess. So it's not that bad. You go through the suck with each other. You can help each other out where other people are struggling. You might be strong at where you struggle at, other people are strong at. So just being able to work as a team to get things done and figure things out, it's been nice. The only thing that sucks is not being able to be home for things and be active as being a spouse and a dad. So that's been the hardest thing. All right, week 9. Fitness. So we have a corrections academy starting where we're at now too. So they took over our training room for a week to do their defensive tactics and stuff like that. So we've been using a recreation center all week for our PT, which was nice because I started showing up 45 minutes early before PT to start doing my own weight training stuff, because it was like, I've noticed how much weaker I've gotten since I haven't been able to consistently go to the gym. So that's been my priority. I don't even care if I get 20 minutes of goblet squats with a 50-pound dumbbell, something just to do something to get more out of when I'm getting off a PT, because all we essentially do is body weight workouts. So we did fitness for an hour, and then we did responding to crimes in progress, which was using. I want to get ahead of myself and make sure. Looking at the notes here. Oh wait, so that would be on Tuesday. So we did more classroom lecture on responding to crimes in progress and scenarios using, just like we've been doing, a little bit more laid back, but situations that could actually happen and using your people skills. We did 2 hours of that. 1 hour of motor vehicle law. That was our exam for that. So the traffic laws and stuff in Michigan, which was crazy. I knew it was going to be challenging and hard, but a lot of the questions on there, I was like, holy crap. It is impossible to remember so much, every law, every traffic citation on there. So I know a lot of the ones that weren't on there, but there was some of the ones, I never would expect it to be on there, like dealing with aircrafts and stuff like that. So a flying aircraft that makes an emergency landing. So I still got an 88%, I believe. So I'll take that. Then we did an hour of death investigation again, an hour of interrogation procedures. So learning how to do the basics of interrogating. So knowing the difference when it goes from questioning to an interrogation. There's a big difference. Interrogation is when it becomes you have the elements of a crime and you're trying to get the person to confess, or that they were involved with a crime. 4 hours of first aid. That was all we did on Monday. Tuesday, fitness. I don't remember what we did, but Thursday and Friday, I'll get to that. I'll give a little bit of our fitness breakdown. Tuesday, we did fitness for an hour, and then we did traffic investigation. So, that we switched that around. We did 2 hours patrol area checks, and then we did responding to crimes in progress, which is probably about 3 hours. So responding to crimes in progress, we did with simunitions. So simunitions training is like they're quote unquote fake rounds, not necessarily fake rounds because they still break the skin and they still hurt like hell when you get hit by them. But they're like paintballs too, so they have paint marking. So this added more stress to the scenarios, all right? Because it's different when you're with your buddies and you're having to pretend to act like a drunken, disorderly person, stuff like that. But when you got instructors and stuff like that who are amped up and they're playing the parts well, and everything you say or your actions either escalates or de-escalates the situation, and they may or may not have a gun on them and point it and shoot at you, that adds more stress to the situation on how you would deal with things. I thought it was a lot of fun. It brought back to the military training days. And again, that was a long time ago. So still felt some nervousness on the first scenario went through because didn't really know what to expect. To get more on that on the practical side of things, but people skills always works. Well, not always, but more often than not, it always will work. Then we did 3 hours of traffic crash investigation. Really crazy to see what happens with traffic crashes, not only from cars to cars, but pedestrians to cars, animals to cars. It just mind blowing how in an instant, how much damage and how much things can be taken away. It was crazy. Then we did 2 hours criminal law, laws of arrest. Oh, excuse me. No, we did our midterm. Yeah, we did our midterm exam for criminal law, and then we did a last hour was beginning laws of arrest. Midterm was pretty hard. I did still did well on it. I don't know how many times I've gone and read through our Michigan criminal law book over and over and over again. Again, you can't remember everything, but the major things will stand out and you'll remember the elements of a crime. So when you see a scenario, you'll be like, oh, okay, well, that's part of it. But that's not part of it, so I can't charge this person with this. It's all scenario questions on, say this event happened. If you were the investigating officer, what would you charge this person with? And you'd have 3 or 4 options. So understanding the elements of a crime kind of makes things easier. Thursday we did, that was Tuesday. Wednesday we did fitness. We did So we got 2 drill instructors, one male, one female. We only had the one female this week for Thursday or Wednesday, and we did a lot of sprints, a lot of push-ups, buddy drags. So we would literally sprint a basketball court. So we'd go from baseline, so one end of the court, you do 5 push-ups. Then you sprint to the other side of the court, you do 5 push-ups. Then you run the baseline, 5 push-ups. Then you sprint to the other opposite baseline again, you do 5 more push-ups. You repeat that over and over, and I don't know how many times we went through it, but holy crap, I mean, got to the point where I could hardly do any more push-ups, and legs were fried. And then after that, we went to doing buddy drags, which if you've never done buddy drags, they will torture quads. By buddy drags, I mean pulling them so you're facing each other. So if someone's laying on the ground and I grab their ankles, I'm facing towards them and I'm running backwards, you are going to fry your quads, especially if somebody's bigger than you. Survived it. It was hard, but I didn't feel like my ass was kicked. It was a hard training session. It was actually fun to do something quite different, even though it was very hard. Then we did our wellness lecture. So we did midterm review, which was really easy for me because, again, this is my background. My wheelhouse is in fitness and wellness. So a lot of that stuff was really easy. I'm not worried about the midterm exam on that. I didn't make a study guide to pass out for other people just because I know so much on that and can really help out where people might not have an understanding on. Then we did 2 hours of traffic investigation, 4 hours. This was our last 4 hours of first aid. It was all scenarios, no PowerPoint, just 4 hours of just knocking out scenarios of everything from strokes to heart attacks, diabetic situations, stuff like that. And then 2 hours of interrogation procedures. Thursday, fitness. We had the male drill instructor come in, and we knew it was going to be bad because every time we line up at the rec center, there's a stairway or a stairwell that's behind doors, and we line up in there. And as soon as he opens the door and yells, "Fall in," he's already, "Hurry up, let's go, let's go." It's like, oh shit, we're in for a rough one today. And we did push-ups to failure before we even did a warm-up, and it was just crazy. Like, yep, this is going to be bad. We did a lot of wall sits, log presses, more buddy drags. I literally, when we were doing our buddy drags, I was just so exhausted. I literally was like half court dragging the partner I was with, and I was literally at like a walking pace, just pulling along. Everybody else was done. But I'm literally just like, I'm going to pass out right now. Like my head was pulsating. Still got it done. It helps when all your buddies are saying, "You're almost done. Keep pushing, keep pushing." My quads were completely torched Friday because we were already smoked from Thursday's PT session, and then coming on Friday and get hammered again. Oh, that was miserable. Then we did 7 hours of traffic crash, how to do forms like filling out traffic crash reports. For Michigan, it's the UD10s. So how to use the software and make the traffic crash diagrams and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. Our instructor for that, again, a funny guy, very passionate, loves what he does. He's been doing traffic investigation, traffic crashes for, I think he said 17 years. So that 7 hours went by so fast because it was so fun and so engaging. He made it fun. Then we had criminal laws on search warrants. I'll get more probably on that. Maybe practical stuff for next week. But understanding search warrants and the exceptions can be tricky. Doesn't mean just because it's an exception, you can go search wherever you want or however you want. There is limitations on those. So our upcoming week, so that's recap of week 8, week 9, our upcoming week. So next week, this coming week, week 10, we are getting OC sprayed. I'm not looking forward to that because I've been through that with the military before, and that's not a fun experience. I mean, I know it sucks, and when you have to go through and fight off people, so throw your haymakers and your knees, and then have to try to fight somebody off, and then have to do a takedown and handcuff them. It sounds easy, but if you've never been OC sprayed before, it is miserable. And we're doing a Z pattern. We did the same thing in the military. Our Z pattern was across the forehead, and forehead, eyes, and nose. We're doing a Z pattern now where they're going eyes, nose, and mouth. So that is gonna suck, but once it's done with, we will look back and laugh at it. So I'm just waiting for it to be over with. I forgot to mention too on week 8. So week 8 on Monday, we got since day 1 we've had our ties tucked in because you had to earn your right to have your ties untucked, and then you earn the tie pin, so where it clips onto your uniform and stuff like that. So we earned that on week 8, but we all had to stand in PT formation, so we didn't do PT that day. Now I remember that. We had our duty gear, so we had a uniform inspection, and then it was knowing your core values, so loyalty, duty, respect, altruism, honor, integrity, and personal courage, and knowing the definition of them. So they would literally call out one person and be like, what's the definition of loyalty? And then if you didn't know it, you got demerit for it. And then they are all asking other things, or our drill sergeants were asking other things too, like what are traffic citations that are, or traffic citations that can be misdemeanor citations and stuff like that. So knowing those, and how many hours you have to notify somebody, like give victims right to a victim and stuff like that. It was a lot of information. So when you're already trying to study for exams and all that stuff, and you're already stressed about other things, and then when you get asked point blank, like, oh, holy crap. For the most part, we all did really well, so we got to earn our tie pins and stuff like that. So just another thing to signify becoming more competent in what we're doing and practical on things as well. So I'll stop beating on that. So let's just get to our practical thing, and that's going to be more on responding to crimes in progress. And the big thing, again, like I said, with these scenarios we went through, it was through anything you say or do can escalate or de-escalate a situation. So that's what our instructors were doing. Look, if you were doing the right things, they might be a little bit more cooperative. If you weren't doing the right things, they might escalate a situation in a heartbeat. And more often that might be leading to a gun getting pulled and stuff like that. Or they might just run past you and grab a gun and just see how you react, because it sounds like common sense to go, this person's got a gun, I'm going to have mine drawn on them, because it only takes a split second for it to get pointed at you, and then you're shot, you're done. But for people who've never been in that situation before, you can freeze a little bit. So that was all important, and to add those little stress factors, especially for people who've never been through that type of stuff before. I'm not stressed out by people pointing guns at me. I did that stuff many times overseas in the military, so I kind of immune to that. Not saying it doesn't cause any stress to me, but it's kind of been there, done that already. So it's being confident in your own abilities and understanding the rules. I was about to say rules of engagement, but the laws of force. So your force continuum and what you can and cannot do. Obviously, you just don't want to pull out a gun every time and go, oh, all right, this person is not cooperating. That's not how it works. But understanding and knowing where that line is. Once you feel like your life is a threat, you better take control of a situation. So I've mentioned this before, and my brother did a really good job of this, and I've mentioned some of our instructors that are really good at this, and that stress the importance of this, your mouth as a tool, because you can escalate or de-escalate too. We talked previously about nonverbal communication and how words are said and what words you use, so the context of things. So, say things can either piss people off because of what like the words you use and how you said it, or they can calm them down because of what you said and how you said it. So one thing I'm going to go on to is a few weeks ago when we were doing scenarios of showing empathy and stuff, of like getting down on people's level, like I understand how you're feeling and stuff like that, and then being able to empathize with people. But we have one person in our class, and I feel the same way as when somebody goes, I understand what you're feeling. It is like that instantly just makes him mad. It's like, don't even try to say you understand how I feel or what I'm going through, because we're all different. So that's one of the things, saying like you have to watch yourself. There's trigger words. Trigger words are words that can set people off. So you might have a situation under control, but you might say something like that to somebody who's going through a hard time. I understand what you're going through. I went through something similar. More often than not, it might be nice for people because you can relay information or help them through that. But there are going to be those situations where you got people that's going to be trigger for them, and that's going to make them pissed off. But responding to crimes in progress, obviously this doesn't apply to like breaking and enterings and stuff like that. What I mean by crimes in progress is this could be your domestics and assaults and stuff like that. Your interpersonal skills, being able to talk to people, take command of a situation, be commandful and allowed, but not be demanding and allowed. There is a huge difference. When you demand something of people, how much cooperation do you really think you're going to get? Probably not a whole lot. But if you're a respectful person, and I mean, regardless of situations, treat people with respect, you're probably going to get a lot more out of them than you would if you just come off beating your chest and demanding that they obey you because you got the badge and stuff like that. You have to be aware of that stuff, especially if you're younger. And I don't mean offense to that, but I mean, there is a huge difference between life experience of somebody, and I see it with our guy who's 45, the way he talks to people in our scenarios and just how he is as a people person. It is crazy how much he can just go right to those people skills and de-escalate something in a heartbeat, because he has 45 years of experience, and a lot of it has to do with, I mean, his former career of dealing with people and sales and stuff like that, having to be a people person. It makes a massive difference. So understanding escalation and how quick things can change. Again, just talked about that already. When you're demanding somebody, I mean, whether it be a domestic and stuff like that, you can escalate the situation by somebody kind of feeding off of that and be like, okay, you're yelling, so I'm going to start yelling back too. And that's what our instructors did. They would feed off of that. So again, how you were representing yourself or responding to a thing, they either escalated or de-escalated it. Be comfortable with, again, cannot stress that, being comfortable with your force. And again, it's easy for me to see like that. People are probably listening and just going, oh, what do you know? You're still in the academy. Again, it's been a long time, but I was military police, and I've also, from my experience overseas, all right, yeah, it's you have to be comfortable and articulate why you did what you did. As long as you can do that, you should be fine. The ability to articulate why you did things. Know the laws, especially when it comes to the Fourth Amendment. We actually talked to our criminal law instructor on this because we were kind of a little bit confused. So one of the scenarios was you're showing up to a 911 hang up, and that's all we got. Dispatch to 911 hang up, possible domestic. You knock on the door, person opens up the door. I didn't fucking call you guys, closes the door back. Shut. Well, we were being told you should be entering that door right away because of emergency, exigent circumstances. But our criminal law guy, and which makes sense afterwards, is like, legally you cannot do that. If you do that, if you burst, like if you put your foot in the door and you go bum rushing in there because there was no, if it's just all a 911 hang up, you cannot still just go barging into someone's house like that. And if you do, and then you end up finding all this evidence and stuff like that, your case gets thrown out because you did an illegal search and seizure. Anytime you apprehend somebody, you are seizing that person. So again, having to understand your levels of force and what you can and can't do is so important. And that's been hit home by us. Again, I'm going on this criminal law guy, our instructor, professor. He's a prosecutor. Phenomenal. Everything he loves when we ask questions and bring up our training and stuff like that, because he can literally go, if I got this as a case, if you did this, I would throw it out. Here's why, or stuff like that. So make sure you do this, or if this situation turned into this, maybe it would be a little bit different. So if someone does a 911 hang up and they're screaming for help in the background, like, oh, he's going to kill me, well, that obviously makes the situation quite a bit different. This munitions training was by far the best learning experience because it made things more legitimate. There was direct consequences for your actions, and it was nice to be able to talk about it afterwards, after all the groups go through and discuss the situations, what could have went better, what should we be looking for and stuff like that. The best learning experience is by doing things. And when you add that element of stress, it makes it better, because you don't want your first time being stressed out to be when you're actually doing it for real. And then you sit there with the oh shit look on your face going, now what do I do? Like, you don't want to be that one. You don't want to be put in that situation. So I'll just end it for the practical segment. It was a lot of fun. I wish we could do more of the simulations training, again, because it adds more realism to it. And once you do one, you get better as time goes. So the more you practice it, the better you become with it. Our fitness segment, low back pain. And why is low back pain so prevalent in the law enforcement community? And a lot of this becomes, I don't want to say everybody's lazy from sitting around a lot, but sedentary, right? So you're sitting in the office writing reports, you're sitting in a patrol car, you also got all your stuff on your duty belt that's pulling your hips downward and forward, and then your slouch posture, so the shoulders round forward. And even those that are active, so you do physical training, and for us at the academy, you do a lot of the anterior muscles, all right? So when people maybe are on the road, they love the bodybuilding stuff, so I'm going to do bench press, incline bench press, all these stuff because I want my chest to be massive. Well, and I don't do anything like pull-ups and stuff like that. Your shoulders come forward. That adds to more low back pain, all postural and all stuff that can be fixed. So there's a syndrome, call it cross syndrome. Some call it cross-X syndrome. It's just, it doesn't need to be called anything like that. It's just agonist and antagonist. So you're opposing muscle groups and the balances and imbalances that cause pain in one joint or another. So usually you see this with, so opposing, all right? So I'm going tight neck with a weak back, tight chest, weak traps. Tight chest, weak back, tight neck, weak traps, tight hip flexors, weak hamstrings, and then tight low back and your weak abdominal muscles. So a lot of this leads to overarching of the lower back. And you see this with physical training. I saw a lot in the military. I see it a lot now in our academy. And then I also see it in the gym when people are training as well. If they're squatting, they're doing overhead presses and stuff like that, they overarch their lumbar spine because of some movement compensation. It could be from shoulder mobility or some other issue. And they're actually doing themselves more damage. Maybe damage ain't the right word, but they're doing more harm than good with doing that exercise within the overarched lumbar spine. So I'm going to use this for PT when we're doing planks to failure, when we're doing flutter kicks and leg holds, when you can't hold your legs up, your low back arches. Not a good situation to be in. So the minute somebody starts reaching that failure, everybody should stop, because you don't want to reinforce that posture to have happen. Because once you keep putting your body in that posture, it's going to get comfortable in that posture, and that's how it's going to start to stay, and you're going to have to do things to correct that. So going to the strength and conditioning community and applying to here, your lower back, all right? So when I do hip extension, so if I'm standing up from a squat, that's extending my hips. Or if I'm running, when I push off, so when I'm propelling myself forward, my leg goes behind me, that's hip extension. Hip extension primarily happens from your glutes, your hamstrings, and your contralateral QL, your quadratus lumborum, which is a back muscle. So it goes from your lumbar spine and all the way up your back. It's like a little band there on both sides. Those three are primarily responsible for hip extension. And what we want to have happen, our glute is our most strongest, more powerful muscle in the body. We want that to be our primary hip extensor. Then we want our hamstrings, and then we want our QL. Well, when we overarch our lumbar spine, so when you got a massive arch in your lower back, ultimately you're inhibiting your glutes. We say we shut your glutes off. Physiologically that doesn't happen, but you inhibit your glutes from firing optimally, so you put more stress on your lower back. And that's going to have carryover to when you're doing your sprints, when you're doing your squats, everything like that. I hope that makes sense. So that's why taking care of any of those postural issues, and if you're noticing yourself in the gym and you're doing overhead presses and holy crap, I feel this in back, I guarantee it, your chest is up, so your rib cage is flared and you got a massive arch in your lower back. Do not do that. You want to keep a neutral spine on every exercise as best as you can. If you got bad shoulder mobility and you're doing back squats, not the best thing to be doing, because you know what's going to happen? to keep your chest up, you're going to overarch your back, and you're going to essentially put all that stress on your lumbar spine compared to your glutes and your hamstrings and your quads. So let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about on that? And it's just much more important because of that as a police officer. All right, you want to be able, again, the importance of being relied on not only by the community but your partner, and you need to be able to do the job yourself. So performance cannot be understated and underlooked. You have to take care of yourself. And there's simple ways to do that. Not saying you have to go in the weight room and be squatting 400 pounds or hip lifting 400 pounds. You can do body weight stuff, stretching, stuff like that to help mitigate some of the risk for lower back pain. I'm not going to say nobody's ever going to experience that, but just to make it not as bad or to prolong it from happening, I think is you need to do, you owe it to yourself to do that. So here's an example program of what you could do for that stuff. So the common sense thing is, all right, if I'm tight in my chest and I'm weak in my back, stretch out my chest. So stretch out my chest and my shoulders, and then I need to start doing more rows and more chin-ups and stuff. That's pretty common sense. Well, for me it is. But so if it's not common sense to you, that's how you fix it. If you're weak in your hamstrings and you just tighten your hip flexors, stretch out your hip flexors and do more RDLs, do more hip lifts, anything that's going to train your glutes and your hamstrings. You could also do squats. That's fine. So that's what I mean by that. So here's an example type program of what I would do if you have really bad mobility and need to work on more stretching. You could add it simply into your training. So block number one, again, that's always our usual, our power or speed block. I don't have sprints on this, but you can sub out the squat jumps I put on there for sprints if you want. Jumps, 3 sets of 5. After your 5 squat jumps, again, you're jumping for it as high as you can possibly get, because on your jumps, if you're not putting 100% to it, you're not going to get better. You need to put maximal intent on every time you either lift a weight up or you're jumping. After your 5 jumps, do a hip flexor stretch. The common one is put your knee on the ground. So rear knee goes on the ground, you push your hips forward. That's the most common one you're ever going to see. You can also do that from a standing position and focus on your breathing. So you do 5 deep inhales through the nose, 5 exhales through the mouth. And I'm going to use this type of breathing for our practical segment next week, because belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing is so important. But you do that for all 3 sets. So I'm stretching out my hip flexors, because my next movement when I go on the block number 2 is going to be my squats. So I'm going to do squats, 4 sets of 6. After my 6 reps of squats, I'm going to stretch out my hamstrings. You could do it anyway, same concept. 5 deep breaths. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Then I'm going to go on to pull-ups. 6 reps, or I like to go however many I can with good form, just shy of failure, because more pulling exercise, especially for all the pushing that we do in the academy. So it could be anywhere from 4 to 6, 6 reps to 12 reps or whatever. Just make sure you're not training to failure on it. And then after my pull-ups, I'm going to do a chest stretch. Same thing, 5 breaths. So that's one circuit. Squat, stretch the hamstrings, pull-ups, chest stretch. 3 to 5 sets for 3 to 6 sets, however you want to do. Just make sure stretching's a priority in there. Then my last block, I'm going hip lift, because now I stretched up my hammies and my glutes. So I'm going to go hip lift, 3 sets of 6. I'm going to go overhead wall press. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. It's a shoulder mobility exercise. There's no weight. It's literally you sit up against the wall like a wall sit. Your low back, your shoulders, and your head maintain contact with the wall, and you just do an overhead press. However, with your overhead press, your elbows and your forearms and your wrists need to stay in contact with the wall the entire time. If you got bad mobility, you're gonna cramp up like a son of a gun. So you can ease off a little bit by letting your wrist come off the wall and stuff like that, and progress up to being able to keep all points of contact. But same thing, focus on breathing. So I start with my hands by my shoulders if I was doing a military press, taking a deep breath through my nose, and then exhale as I press up, inhale as I come back down. Do that 5 times. And then I go on to 3 sets of 6 on dumbbell rows. I don't have any stretching after that. So that would be that circuit. Hip lift, overhead wall press, dumbbell row. So your hip lift, this is kind of important too. Your hip lift, where your feet are placed, makes a difference. You can go shoulder elevated, so my shoulder's up on a bench. to do a hip lift, I can do it laying on the floor, or I can do it with my feet elevated up on a bench. If your knees are placed at 90 degrees, you're going to train your glutes more than your hamstrings. If your feet are placed greater than 90 degrees, you're going to train your hamstrings more than your glutes. So whichever one you want to work on, you can literally do one day training a week, and then you can do the other one on the next training day. But it's all how you want to train. So if your glutes suck and need more strength and more power output, put your knees at 90 degrees. You're going to train your glutes a lot more. And curl your big toe on the floor. Anybody who's already like a strength and conditioning background knows of Cal Dietz. He's a strength coach at Minnesota and is also a strength coach for Team USA women's hockey. That big toe on the ground really helps with glute firing as well. It's pretty simple, very effective. Stretching between exercises has been scientifically proven to help enhance performance as well. It's just a matter of what people prefer, right? So if I'm really tight, I utilize some of this. If I'm not, I don't. But I always have some sort of extended warm-up if I'm not doing that, or a longer cool-down if I'm not doing that. And one thing I personally have started doing this past week is, and I already talked about it, was showing up 30 to 45 minutes early prior to our PT sessions to do a workout. Now, I'm used to working in a sports facility, all right? So I have all the damn bumper plates, trap bars, safety squat bars, barbells, so I can do all the Olympic lifts and whatever weights I want to, squat variations. But where we go to the rec center here, or where we go at, they have pretty much nothing but machines. They don't have a squat rack. They have a Smith machine, and I hate the Smith. Any type of machine I absolutely hate. There is no purpose for it, in my opinion. Well, there is a purpose for like the older population or if you got injuries, but for athletic or tactical situations, we don't need them. So I think in this weight room, they got one flat bench, one barbell incline bench. They got a preacher curl, dumbbells up to, I think, 80 pounds, and then 2 cables, which is fine. You can still get a lot done, but I'm not used to having to work around that type of training. So what I've been doing again is what I don't get in our PT, I get in there. So I literally take one of the barbells off the bench press, put 45s on there or whatever weight, and then do my hang cleans and stuff like that. They're all metal plates and not bumper plates, so I can't just drop them on the floor. So that makes a difference for my training as well. So I'll do that with jumps. And then I do a lot of chin-ups, a lot of face pulls, a lot of dumbbell rows. So to help balance out all of the pushing that we do in PT. And my mobility has gotten a lot better. I don't feel any shoulder issues anymore ever since I started doing that. So if you're going through an academy or if you're preparing to go through one, keep that in mind. You might have to sacrifice some more of your time to show up early to help fight off some of that stuff, because you do not want it to become a minor problem and not take care of it, and then it become a major problem, and then you can't finish the academy or nobody wants to hire you because you're a mess. Just keep that in mind. I think I'll wrap that up here. Again, I apologize for not having one next week. Let's see. We go on, so this is our last week, and then we go on spring break, so I'll have an episode next weekend. We get OC sprayed on the 4th, and I'll probably upload that to the YouTube channel so everybody can laugh at that. It's going to be fun. It's not going to be fun. So it's one of those things where you embrace the suck and look back at it. And I'm just going to enjoy watching other people getting sprayed, because I know how bad it sucks, but I also know I'm going to have to take it too. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, or if you want to hear more about a certain topic, again, fitness and strength and conditioning is my background. That's my wheelhouse. So if there's something you want to know how to be able to do better, or if you're struggling with something, let me know and I will help that out, because if you're having that issue, I guarantee you're not the only one. So that being said, God bless. Have a great weekend. See you guys next week. Thank you for listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to be on the show, email me at ontheroadlaw@gmail.com. And please like, share this podcast. Thank you.